Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I was collaborating on a community for a platform that I use called EasyPanel, and one of the questions that had come up for support was if EasyPanel has an API that they can use so that they can script making changes to existing applications, such as pushing, I don't know, volumes or updating the domain or certain settings or pushing apps and so on and so forth. And the answer is, in this case, EasyPanel is a modern application. It's meant for managing Docker applications on a single host. It uses Docker Swarm to do it. And so there's a front-end website interface, and there's a undocumented but supported API on the back end. And the API is what the front end uses in order to communicate. So just like with Halo, just like with how Halo's API, we can dive into network tools or development tools on the network tab, and we can see the API calls that are being made. We can do the same thing with EasyPanel to try to figure out like what we can or can't do via the API. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's dig into EasyPanel. I have a brand new EasyPanel setup. So let's go ahead and share that. All right, so I've got my EasyPanel login here. I've got my development tools already loaded on the network tab here. And so we can see that we already actually see queries hitting the API. I'm filtered for API. It's the same kind of path that Halo uses. So it's already been there. And I'm not even logged in yet. And we can see that we're getting API calls. We can see the header, which indicates what the URL is it's hitting. We can see some API, some query parameters in the URL. And we can see the responses that are coming back. And so we can see, yes, setup is complete. Looking at the actual API call, we can determine more or less what is actually happening. So we can see that this is going to our hostname /API/TRPC setup.getStatus. And then it's including some sort of input that looks like it's URL encoded. So we can go to the payload and we can do view decoded, and we can actually see the input is really just a JSON object that's null. It's just not passing anything along with it. If we look at the response, the preview or the response itself, we can see that it returns a result where the data of JSON is complete is true. So it's a very basic API that we can see right off the bat. We can come back here and say, what is this one? This is whether we're getting the user. Again, there's a payload here. Let's go ahead and look at the decoded. We're just looking for some undefined null, whatever, but it's looking like it's trying to get user of some kind. And let's go look at our response. Response is a null response. There's nothing here. So we can just keep looking through and we can see that the exact same loop keeps happening every so often. It's just like happening nonstop. And if I go to click around, we can see additional requests are made. And so it seems like at the login page, the API is just constantly being queried, looking for the setup status and whatnot. I'm going to clear that out. Ooh, I click in and immediately we got 2 more calls. I'm going to go forward and I'm going to submit my username and password. I'm not going to hit the login button yet. I'm going to clear it again and hit login at this point. And now I'm going to pause it. Now I'm stopping this because notice there's like a ton of stuff that happens immediately. So we've got a bunch of API calls. We don't really know what's happening at this point, but we did capture an authentication. The way it works on the internet is that there's multiple different kinds of HTTP calls that occur. HTTP call is when you're making a web request. It can be over HTTP, HTTPS. We just call them HTTP in general. The S can be implied or not implied, depending if it's a secure protocol. But in general, we just call it an HTTP call. There's a couple kinds of methods you can call them. That's the official term. You've got a post where you're submitting data, like a form. You've got a GET request where you're going to get information, so you're going to receive information back. A GET can send some information to the server when you make that GET request. Those are called query parameters. And then finally, you've got other methods like put, patch, delete, and so on. For the most part, in this case, I'm just going to focus on the GET and the posts, or really, I'm going to focus on any API call that we run into, and we're going to be able to tell from the method what the API is actually doing. Here, we can only see one post occurring, and that's going to be something that we're submitting. The only thing I ever submitted was my username and password. So let's go look at that. For those of you who are about to freak out about seeing my username and password in plain text, do not worry. It is a demo temporary system. It will not be valid by the time this video is live. So I understand the security implications. Do not share your username and password in public, please, especially if it's real. In this case, it is a randomly generated string. It's never going to be used again, and it's only for the system. So that is my disclaimer. Moving on, let's go into the actual post request. We can see auth login. Again, if we're focusing on the actual URL, we can see that kind of what's going on. We've got our host name, we've got our API, we've got our TRPC. So we can see that something's happening with TRPC API call happening to the auth.login handler or endpoint, as what it's called. It is a post method, like we discussed. We got back at 200 OK. We can see some other information, but let's go to the payload tab. In this case, the payload is actually going to be a some sort of real data, not the query parameters. It's going to be an actual body of the data that was transmitted. So I'm going to expand that. We can see that I have a JSON object, and it's literally just my email and password. It's very simple. We look at the response, and we can see we get back a token. And that's, again, if we're digging in using our knowledge of the previous API calls, we know that it comes back in a response or format of result, data, JSON data, and then what that actual JSON object is. In this case, we get back a token, and that's the token that we're using here. We get back here. So again, if we're going to break this down, we're doing a post request to this endpoint. We're including in the post request, and I'm just going to hit the view source. This is the raw data. We're going to define a JSON object. That JSON object is going to include another object of an email password key pair, and we're going to post that to the body, or in the body, to this API endpoint. At which point we're going to get back a result data JSON object of a token, which looks like this in its raw form. That's it. Very basic, simple setup, and we're basically authenticated at that point. So with that being said, let's go and look at some of these other requests. We know that this is the token. Let's go look at our get user input. Whoa, okay, we actually have something before. This is the same kind of API call that was being made before. If we look at our payload and look at the decoded, notice it's the exact same thing. We're not really sending anything. There's just some meta values or undefined or whatever. We probably still have to copy this format. Depends on how the API is built. We don't know that. We're not looking at the source code. We're just seeing how the system's behaving. And we're going to try to mimic that behavior because we want to be able to script certain things and act like a web browser. In this case, let's go look at our preview response. We can see we got a result, data, JSON. But what's different between here, in this case, and what happened before? Our meta values come back, and there's really nothing. Oh, we actually get a created at, date, and undefined. But that's it. We get the ID of the user and the email address and when it was created and whether or not I'm an admin, right? So very basic get user kind of thing. Why is this query working when in previous calls before the login, it wasn't working? And we can answer that by going back to our headers and looking down for our authorization header. Notice that we have an authorization header. It looks like some kind of random string. If we look at that string, go back to our token, what we should see is that is basically the exact same string that's being used. So if we again look at our headers, we can see it starts off CLO. I'm kind of blind, so I'm looking very closely. But it's basically, it looks like it's the exact same string, and that is going to be what we use to pass. Yeah, v3. Yep, it's the token. So we're going to be passing the token in the authorization header whenever we make the API calls, and suddenly it starts working. How can this work in general? How do we make this work for us when we're doing things? Well, here's the good news: is one of my other calls, I was doing some API work with Halo, and I was called out to say, this is all nice and cool and great, but can you actually show us in a platform like N8N or something like that? So yeah, I can. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create an N8N platform. So one of the things that I love about EasyPanel is that it comes with all sorts of templates. I'm just going to run this and call this project N8N, and we're going to open the project, click on templates. We're going to search for N8N, and we are just going to deploy that template and create it just like that. We're going to go to the project, and we're going to start setting it up. So in order for this to work, I'm going to go forward and set up a domain, and we're just going to do YouTube N8N .risingtidegroup.net. We're going to go ahead and save that. Now I got to go to my Cloudflare and just quickly make that host name, because I honestly wasn't prepared to do this. I just decided to do it just now in the middle of the video. Obviously, I'm a great planner. Let's go ahead and set this up real quick. I'm just going to pause the recording while we do this. Hold on. Okay, we are back. domain is currently propagating. We're going to put that on pause for a moment. I'm going to pull up a JSON lint editor or something like that. We just want to be able to get to a place where we can take some notes because we can start writing things down about how things work here. So this is a great place to start taking some information. I think it looks like it's a little slow loading. So maybe, I don't know. It's just loading the ads. Okay. Can we write in here? Yeah, we can. Perfect. I'm just going to take this and we're going to use this for our note taking. So we're going to grab our auth login. We want to grab the header that needs to happen. It's going to be a post, right? And so we're going to say post to this URL, and we're going to grab our payload to make sure that we can replace this with our information as that body, just like that. And alongside that, if we go look at our headers, we can see if there is any other information that we need to include. That our pragma authorization is undefined, so there's nothing there that we need. It looks like we should be okay to just make that call, and we should get back our token. Once we make that token call, we want to get some basic API calls to make sure that it's working. So we're going to go ahead and grab our update user request. And again, this is just going to be a single URL query. It's going to be a get. So I don't have to go looking for the payload because it's literally all in here. And then we can grab our header. It's going to be authorization. And then it's literally just going to be a token by itself. We're not going to be doing anything else. Authorization equals, and then we'll specify a token. So that's how we know what to put in here. And then finally, we'll go and do another request. Let's just see whether or not we've got projects, what our projects are. So we come here, we can see we've got a list of projects. We've got the Cloudflare tunnel. We've got the Cloudflare information. I'm going to go ahead and actually grab this request. It's going to list out all of our projects. And the next time we make that call, it should include the N8N project as well. We're going to do get to that. And we're going to assume our authorization token and header is basically the same. And it looks like it is. We don't have much else to do there. So we're going to go ahead and copy this. And again, we're taking the notes so that we can start writing our script and figure out what we need to do. We're going to capture some more information. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and clear the history. And I'm going to go and we're going to, I don't know, we're going to go into a project. So now we're capturing all this stuff. I'm going to go to the domains and I'm going to add a new domain. And this domain is going to be test.me.risingtidegroup.net. And we'll add in a path, / sure 80 works, whatever, and we'll save that. And then I'm going to stop this. Look at all this stuff that's happening throughout this period. Right? This API is heavily used. However, only one is a post. If we look back, we can see the update domains is the endpoint that we want to do. So we're going to go ahead and grab this. And we're going to paste that into our notes that we're going to be doing. All right, it's just literally same exact URL, services.app.update domains. And then we're going to go grab our payload to see what our payload looks like. And it looks like we're literally just including the project name, the service name, the domains itself are going to be in a, looks like an array. So what we need to do is we have to grab, so if we look at this, let me look at the parsed one, for example. Notice our domains right here. This is a list of domains that already exist plus new ones. And if we look at expand, we got 0 and 1. So let's look at the 0. We have a JSON object of what that information is. And we've got another JSON object of what this domain information is. So we need to basically rebuild this object in the same exact way so that we can add to it or update it or do whatever we want in the API. With that being said, in order for us to do that, we have to get the domains in the first place. So I'm going to go first, I'm just going to grab this and do get source. I'm going to copy that and paste it into the notes so we know like what the body needs to look like, just like before. And again, even though in this case it's a post, we still need an authorization header. So if we look back at the dev tools and we flip back to the headers tab, we should see that our authorization header still exists. That's what's allowing us to make that call. So we still have to figure out like how do I know what domains are there, right? If I'm adding a domain to it, I need to know what domains come first. So let me go ahead and see if we can find in these calls which domains what domains exist. So we've got a bunch of information here. It doesn't look like any of them actually include something specific for the domain, but let's work our way backwards. So we're going to go to the response tab and we'll go to the preview tab and we see the response here was actually pretty No, nothing happened. It was just a confirmation that it worked. And then we go back and come here, and we've got the data JSON user settings were generated and saved. Interesting. So this is basically the console. Notice what I'm reading is basically the exact same thing as what's on this screen right here, right? If I full screen this, it's right here. So this and this are exactly the same, which means we can build, technically speaking, if we want to. We found the API call to be able to retrieve the logs of an app, which allows us to generate monitoring platforms. We can run API calls against our EasyPanel systems and look for any kind of error messages in console automatically because it's all right here. Now let's keep going our way up. We've got a call that returns, again, the same thing. Let's keep going. What's this? It looks like now we've got a list of our projects. Cloudflare, we've got one, EasyPanel, error messages, N8N. Okay, nothing really here. At this point, it looks like it's a monitor. So let's keep going, get service. What is this? This looks like our hardware information, right? So now we can build a script that does our monitoring via hardware. Let's keep going. What's in our logs? Same thing that we saw before. Let's keep going up. Let's say it's going to be before our logs, probably. Let's go a little further up here. Because again, this went really quick. Let's go in here. What does this inspect service do? Whoa, okay, look at that. So now I'm inside service app inspect service, right? And I'm getting a response back that's including a list of services specifically, where in this case, there's only one. It's called N8N. That's the service that we're on. And we can see our domains are actually right here. And here's a list of our existing domain. And we just need to grab that and append to it. So this is the call that we want to grab in order to understand what it is we're looking at. So with that being said, let's go to headers. What we're doing is we need to grab, it is a get call. We need to grab this entire thing. Let's go ahead and grab it. And this will be a get. We're going to paste that in. And this will be, we'll grab our, we'll need our token at the same point. And what we're looking for specifically is we're looking for the result.data.json.domains. Okay, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the result.data.json.domains. And so we want to get node result.data.json.domains. And this will be what the domains equals. And now we can go up here and we can take our domains and we can actually grab everything inside of here and remove it. Right, because what we're talking about, let's go back to the side, is we need to pass in a domains of new domains, and we're going to actually include what that is exactly. So this will be a JSON object. With JSON object, we're going to say our new domains equals existing domains plus new domain information that we need, right? And so we're going to create our object. Our new domain information is going to look very similar to the same object that we have here, right? So we need a host, HTTPS, port, and path. So here our host will be, and that'll be something like, what was our domain that we created? testme.risingtidegroup.net. And so we need to do testme.risingtidegroup.net. And we had HTTPS was true, and we had port was 80 or something like that, right? We left it at 80 in this case. And again, this is going to be information that you're going to be able to build and put into your script, and you can do whatever you want with. And then finally, our path was just that. And that is the extent of our object. Once we have that, we have an array. Existing domains is already an array, right? So we're going to grab the root of domains, which is already an array, and we're just going to add to that array the new domain that we're putting in, which is going to be this one. And then we're going to take our entire new object and post it all together. In order for this to work, we need to make sure we do our get request prior to our post request. So let's go up here and let's just paste it in here. And so the order of operations that we're doing is, number one, we're going to post our login. We're going to get our token. We're going to get some information about the EasyPanel, make sure things are working. We don't have to. We can skip these next two if we want to, but it's just to showcase how the API works. And then finally, we're going to take our list our projects, and we are then going to build our new domains object and post that back, adding a new domain into the project. And this is just an example of how the API is broken out, so we can kind of figure this out and reverse engineer how the platform works, and then script it is basically the goal here. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and make some quick adjustments here. Notice we've got our YT demo risingtidegroup.net API TRPC, right? So this is basically the base domain of everything. We're just going to cut that out. And we're just going to say here, well, currently I lost my cursor. Base domain plus, and then that. And then we'll say base domain equals, paste that in. Like that, perfect. Okay, so then everything that we have, we can start replacing with base domain. So we can take this and we can go from here all the way till here, right? TRPC API really is where things go. So we're gonna paste that, right? And then there's some other things that we can do. So we remember this is URL encoded, right? So the query looks a little bit weird. In this case, we don't care about it for these two GET requests. We don't really care. We're just gonna keep it simple. When we get to the point of here, when we get to this request right here, this is when things start getting interesting. And so we kind of care about this one. We're gonna replace this and say base domain plus string. Now let's go look at that request. There's some information here that we may need to look at. So we have a service name N8N, and we've got our project name of N8N. So this is pulling a specific service specific project, right? And we may want to replace this with some variables. So let's say we know what the project name is, and we know what the app name is. So let's do project name equals N8N in this case, and then the app name equals N8N. But it doesn't have to, right? It could be it could be anything. It could be Cloudflare. It could be whatever other project you have inside of N8N at this point. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to start replacing project name N8N right here. So these three we're going to replace with quotation marks, 2 quotation marks, and we're going to put in plus, plus, and we'll say project name like that. And then we'll come in here and we'll find the service name, and then we'll replace N8N plus, plus, and we'll do, end quotes, 2 pluses, and then we'll do service name or app name. App name is what I called it, right? So let's put app name in here. And so we're building out the string that'll allow us to then make that final call to any app, where basically we had something that was specific and now we're building it back out. We're abstracting it out so that we can iterate over things based off variables, if you know what I mean. So we've got our authorization token, we've got our node that we have to select to grab our domains, we've got our new domains that are built out. We need to build this out in advance of making this post call, so I'm just going to pull this up. And the reason why we build it this way is, like, you know, a lot of people will tell you, most people will tell you, in order for you to automate a process, you need to have a process to automate. It's not necessarily true. You can build that process while you're automating, but just don't do it in design, if that kind of makes sense. I'm not going to go into the script to start figuring this out and going back and forth, because then it's gonna slow me down. I'm going to use this notepad. It could be any kind of text editor. I'm going to take apart the API, write out a map of what I need to do, right? So you do need to have a process to automate, but you don't have to have that process well-defined and built out days or months in advance. You can literally, first step of automating is to just write it down and then start doing it. Once you have that map, it becomes a lot easier to build through, and then you can get more agile as you're thinking it through and deciding whether or not you want to do that way. All right, so we've got the calls that we need to make. We've got the understanding of how to do it. We have almost everything we need to do. I'm just going to show you something, though. If we look at the headers, this is the one where we're getting that service. Look at that payload. It's kind of unreadable, but it is URL encoded. So if we look at the view decoded one, we can actually see exactly what we're talking about here. N8N service name is for N8N is a service name and project name that we replaced here, and this is exactly how it looks. So you can always copy this, make the changes that you want. So in a readable place, you don't have to like kind of guess where the string stops and starts. Unless you know how to read a URL encoded string, then by all means go ahead. But in this case, it was pretty easy. I knew what it was going to look like, and I was able to just pull N8N out. But that's how it would work. This is the thinking that you go through. And again, any requests that you want to do. So if you want to deploy a template, you want to build an app, you want to do whatever, just run the development tools on the network tab. grab those API calls and rebuild them in a way that you can actually get it done. With that being said, let's go see if we can put something together that'll allow us to build and push a new domain name to EasyPanel using N8N. So I'm going to come here. Let's see, by now I should have more than enough time for our domain to have propagated. We're going to go to that request. And sure enough, we've got the workflow automations are pulling up. We got to sign in. So let's just, we're going to build a password. You know what? I'm actually going to grab the same password as EasyPanel. It's already a compromised password, right? It's already on the YouTube video at this point. And so what do we care? Let's go to next. And we are set up. What are we? We are, I don't know. I'm not using this for work. And I heard about it from a podcast. It's actually not true. I heard about it from EasyPanel specifically. It's a great platform with hundreds of templates that you can deploy of different kinds of software. And we're inside of our very first workflow on how to make it work. So first, let's see if we can get that token. What's our first step? Our first step is let's do let's do this manually so that we can click it when clicking execute workflow. And then we'll come in here and we'll make a HTTP request. Okay. The HTTP request we're going to make is a post call. And our URL, we already know what this is, but I'm already starting to get feelings of, wait a second, I'm about to be doing a lot of duplicate work. Let's back out of here. I don't want to do this. I want to make sure I have the ability to specify things once and then reuse them over and over again. So let's come back here. Let's do code. And now I can actually build out variables for my workflow. So I'm going to come in here. We're going to rename this. Double click that and we'll go into code and we'll rename this to our variables. And we're going to start building out a JSON object to return that'll allow us to set variables that we can reuse. Okay, so in this case, they want to return something. The return is going to be a JSON object, and let's just do a test. So we'll do name and we'll do test and see what the output looks like at this point. If we execute that node, we come back with a name that is a test. And so that is the variable. So in this case, we've got plenty of room here. So let's start building out our actual objects that we need. So we've got a couple of variables, right? We've got our base domain, and that's going to be, as we know from here, it's going to be this, like that. That's our base domain. We're going to go ahead and paste that in here. And now if I execute the node, our base domain will come back and it'll include that URL that we just did. Okay. We also want to have a username and password. So I don't normally encourage this, but we do have this is a unique API. It doesn't follow a typical standard. We don't know what kind of authorization it's using. It's just posting username and password sort of in a very specific thing. So I don't want to keep typing it in or whatever. I'm just going to, for right now, put this inside of a variable. I don't encourage this. Normally, I'm actually going to copy it out of here because I want to maintain the integrity of this object so I know what I need to do in the future. But I'm just going to copy Mendy@risingtidegroup.net as our email. And we can actually call it our login email. And that'll be a string. And then we'll do a login password. And this will be another string that's all the way from here to here. Right. And so this is literally just our password from our password manager or the password we use to sign up with. And then we should be able to get an object that includes all of our information. Is there anything else that we need to build from here? It doesn't look like it. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Maybe we want to include our new domain object potentially. Or we can build it at the time and pass things in. So we'll come back to that for right now. All right, so right now we're basically good. We've got our code. Our code actually should be, I thought I renamed this to be variables, but let's see if I can. There we go. We've got our variables, right? And we've got our HTTP request we're going to make. So let's go ahead and populate this. So here we're going to switch this to an expression like that. Right, and notice it's showing me like how to actually do this. I'm going to go into here and we're going to grab our base domain, and that's going to be the beginning. and then we're going to include a /. Let's go back and grab the rest of the domain that we need here, right here, right? TRPC auth login. So let's go ahead and grab that. And that's literally the domain that's going to be used. Let's go ahead and close it. And that's the domain that's going to populate. We're going to be doing a non for no credentials, but we are going to be sending a body. And that body is going to be a JSON type. And we're going to use JSON objects specifically. We're going to flip over to expression, and we're going to start building this out. So we're going to come in here. We're going to grab this entire object that we have at this point, and I can start clearing things off my notepad as I start using them, right? So I can come in here and I can delete everything from this line at this point because we're basically good. We have the authorization taken care of at this point. We just need to replace this with the email address. So we're going to go ahead and click that. And then we're going to replace this with the password. So we can go ahead and click on that. That'll allow us to put that in. We do have to specify that this is a JavaScript execution. So notice this has to be inside 2 curly braces, similar to like Jinja almost. And then we've got our login, email, password. It's basically the exact same object that we had before. It's being passed through in the body. We can send a header, and a header authorization will be undefined at this point. I think this may work, but there's nothing like testing it to verify, right? So let's go ahead and test it and see what we get back. And boom, there is our token, data JSON token. And we've already completed our first API call to EasyPanel. It's doing the login. So let's go ahead and rename this. We're going to say EasyPanel login. All right. And we're good. We can go here. And upon clicking execute workflow, EasyPanel will log in and we will have a token. Let's go ahead and save this at this point. I'm going to rename this to be EasyPanel API demo. That's not how it's not what I meant to do. All right, and let's go ahead and it's actually already been saved. So we are good there. Now that we've done our demo, we kind of have to, now that we've done our login, let's see if we can come back and build some of those calls out, right? We had these calls right here. They should be fairly simple. So let's see if we can make that work. We're going to do another HTTP request here. And this one is going to be to specifically get the user information, right? So we're going to grab everything in from here to here. We're just going to cut that out. And we're going to go to back to our expression here. We're going to go into it. And we're just going to paste that. Now at this point, we don't need the double quotation marks, right? We do need our base domain. So if we go back to our node from variables and look at our output data, we just want to grab our base domain and include that in the beginning. And so now we've got our full URL built out. We can close that out. We do need to have our header. The header authorization will be here. And in order to do that, we just need to grab our token, which we can literally drag and drop into that, just like that, right? We don't have to go into the full thing to go figure it out. In this case, it's a very simple expression. We're just going to drag and drop it in. There's no body. It is a get. Let's go ahead and execute that node. And we should come back with a value that defines who the user is, just like that. All right, so it's starting to come together. It looks like we got our HTTP request to grab the user, and we can rename this actually and say get user. And we'll say get EP user details and rename that. It's not something that's required to do, but you can just keep that running, making sure EasyPanel's up, responding, your password still works. You can turn that into a monitoring tool and fire off a workflow if it ever fails. We can also grab and do another HTTP request. So let's come out of here and do our other HTTP request. In this case, we've taken care of that one. So we'll move on to the next one. We are going to grab a list of projects at this point, right? That's kind of what this does. So we're going to grab this. We're going to cut it out. We're going to go here. Let's go and throw this in like that. And we're just going to go grab our variables, our base domain, and that's going to go in the very beginning. Sorry, variables. It looks like, because it's not connected, I can't see the output. So let's back to Canvas for a moment, and we're going to go ahead and connect this to that, just like that. Okay. Now let's go back in. Let's go back here and see if we can now go to our nodes, variables. There we go. Output data. Grab our base domain. We want to put it in the beginning. So we'll click there, select that. And now we've got our URL built out again. And then, of course, we've got our send headers. We've got our authorization header built out. And we're going to drag and drop our token into that authorization header, just like that. We'll go ahead and execute that node. And we should come back with a list of projects, Cloudflare, services. Right? And we've got a lot of information about it. And if we keep going, we have our project name N8N, and we've got our services of N8N inside of it. We also have the domains already here. So actually, we technically don't have to do much to grab data out. We already have it inside here. We're going to rename this to basically get services, rename. And so we can crunch some data to figure out like what is the actual domain object, and then build it from there to do our final post back. So that could be an option, or we can go back and actually use this request to get a specific service. So I'm going to showcase it because I didn't realize it was included in the first call. So I'm just going to showcase that again. And we're going to drag another one here to an HTTP request, and we'll rename this to be get specific service. Specific service rename. And then here we'll do again our expression. We need to flip to an expression, and then we can go here, grab our parameters, base domain, our nodes, variables, output data, base domain, which will be the beginning, and then we can come back here and grab everything inside of here and paste it like that. Now we do have to figure out the project name and the app name, which right now doesn't exist. And then we're just going to leave spaces here so that we can find it again. We need to grab that out. We need to pull you out. And so then we just have to replace project name and app name before we can actually test this. So how do we do that? Let's go back to our variables option here. And we are going to include the variables of service name, or actually app name, let's call it what it is, and this will be N8N, and then we have our project name, which will be N8N as well. But we can swap that out with whatever we want, and then in the future, it'll always just have that. So we're going to execute this node. We'll have the new options, new objects that will be returned, and we can go back and close it. And now those will be available for use in here. Let's go back in here, and we should be able to come back here and say that we want our variables, output data, and we've got our app name, base domain. So we're going to remove our project and click project name like that. And we just have to clear those spaces like that. And so we got N8N, and then we can take our app name, remove that, and throw our app name in its place. It'll allow us to then close that up like that. And then we can close this, send headers. This will be using authorization, and we'll need our token at this point. So we don't have it available over there, but we can come here and do EasyPanel login, parameters. The output data is not available because it hasn't been run yet with this node. Let's execute previous nodes. And there it is. So we can now grab our token and throw it into that, just like that. And then we can execute this node, which will allow us to then come back and get our specific service and specific domains at this point, right? So now we've got all the information about this specific app. And again, this is all using the API to basically build an interface similar to the web interface inside of N8N. So let's go ahead and save this. We need to transform data at this point. We need to start adding, we need to build a new object. We need to take domains specifically, and we have to take that and add a new domain to it based off of our parameters. And then we can post it all back as a final setting change to the API. So in order to do that, I've been clicking my way through N8N pretty well now, but I'm actually, this is like the first time I'm using it. Spent some time trying to learn it, so I kind of know my way around it, but I've never actually done data transformation with this. So we're going to see how this works together. We're actually going to try to do this together. It looks like we can probably do some custom JavaScript code to figure out to get this to work. So let's grab this and let's go into this JavaScript, and we want to grab specifically the domains. I don't know where we're going to put this though. So let's do this. Let's pull this out real quick and let's just return. Let's see how this works. I kind of know JavaScript, but it doesn't look like I can drag and drop this into here. Bum, bum, bum. Let's pull this out completely. Oh, we can use $. Hey, look at that. Dot results. Is that a thing? Data? No. Let's go back to the original loop over input. I have to add a new field called JSON of each one. I don't know what that does. Let's execute this. What does this do? Aha, it returned from here. Input dot, let's see if we do dot result dot, what do we need? Data.json dot domains is what we need to do. Is this going to error out? I'm just guessing at this point. Undefined reading data. Okay. Item of input dot result. Let's do this one at a time and see if it gets me anywhere. Nope. It doesn't know. Let's pull it all out and see if we get somewhere here. Yeah, it's not iterable at that point. So what if I just return I guess input is a shorthand. Let's execute this. Okay, so let's do EasyPanel get specific service. Let's do get specific service and return that. Let's see what that outputs. It's an item, but it's empty. Dot result. Code doesn't return items properly. It needs to be an array of objects. Dot result. Dot data. Dot JSON. Dot domains. Nope. Doesn't know what data is. What if we do data? No, it doesn't know. Okay. And we can't drag and drop from here onto here. It doesn't work. So maybe this is not the best way of doing it, or I don't know what I'm doing, which is always possible. Let's see what other options we have here. Well, this looks fun. No. Rename keys, set values on items, option, remove other values. What does this do? Values to set, string. Yeah, the code is failing. We got to remove this code and go back in here and see if we can do. Where does it go though? That's the question. That clearly does not work. Boom, boom, boom. Sure. Let's see what we can do here. I don't think this is what we're looking for either. Let's go back. I think our best use case is probably the JavaScript, but we need to figure out how to make it work. Let's see if the docs are helpful. Blah, blah, blah. Reference computation, built-in methods, and variables, guidance on handling data and querying JSON. Maybe that'll help. Perform search on JSON using JSON object search string to help understand the method. Here's equivalent longer JavaScript var. Search object, search string. Search string is an expression where in tasks. Okay. JSON.body.people, which is just a it looks like we're just oh. And this looks kind of like what we're looking for. Let's do let new list equals JSON is only available in the run once for each item. Okay, we don't need this at this point. JSON body people doesn't really exist. Let's attach this to here and see if we can go in and start replacing. Results dot data dot JSON dot domains. And we can say, I don't actually know if this is going to work. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not going to work. Let's pull this out and try this. Because again, we just need to return the domains. Code doesn't return a single object. An array of objects return. We need outputs multiple. You see run once for all items instead. If I do run once for all items, it is not allowed to be used. Unless we turn this into an object, which we can potentially do by going something like domains and then returning that. Execute node. And now we can have a list of domains as an object where we've got 0 and 1. Perfect. And then we can say, in addition to that domains, we also want to return a new list. So we can actually take this out. Now we're getting somewhere, I think. And say we're going to do let new list equals this plus And then we now need to do another list where we're basically gonna do the same thing. We'll do host equals, and then here we can go to our variables, potentially grab our, well, we don't have a host set here, but we can, let's write it in manually. And so we'll do a host of new test, if I can type, new test me.risingtidegroup.net. And then in addition to that, we'll have the port, which will be, I don't know, we'll do 443 in this. 444 sounds good. I don't really care. Path will be, the idea is just to make sure that we can get that thing added in, right? So is this going to create a new array for me? And if it does, will it properly give me that domains? Object was returned instead. So it did give me 3. Doesn't return an object. Oh, duh. I removed too much. We got to replace this with new list and see if that works. It doesn't, because it's not converting it to a string. What if I pull this out and execute that node? Okay, so some of this is kind of working. We need to figure out how to append into the array. New item equals that. Maybe it's because and then we can do list dot I don't remember how, I really don't remember my JavaScript at this point. But let's see. Probably gonna fail. Append is not a function. Yeah. All right, so I need to figure out how to do this in JavaScript really quick, because I don't remember my JavaScript. It's been a while. And of course, I'm going to go to JavaScript, ChatGPT for my JavaScript question, because where else would I go? It is push, not append. And ta-da, there we go. So I just had the wrong thing here. So now, okay, making progress. That took a while. So now we've got our new object of domains, right? And again, this is because I'm not familiar with N8N. If it was in PowerShell, it'd be a lot easier. I'd be done by now. If it was in Python console, it'd be done by now. If I was writing actual code, it'd be done by now. This is a new platform for me. If I was in Roost, I'd be done by now. And so I'm just learning the ins and outs of that. But now that I have this, I can come back and rename this code to be new domains, rename that, and then I can go back here, and now I can do a final HTTP call to make that final push. And we're basically done at this point. So if you're getting bored, I apologize for that. We're basically done with this video at this point because we have our final and last call to make, which is on these notes. So we've gotten this part done. And now we just have to do, we've got our new domains done, right? So we got all the stuff done. We can pull all that out. We just have to do our final post to this web endpoint. So this API endpoint. So we're going to call that out. And then our object that we need to push is basically going to be built off of our new domain. So we're going to close out our nice little documentation tabs that give us away about how much I don't know what I'm doing. And we're going to go into our URL here. We are going to go to expression, and we're going to grab our variables, our output, which we don't have because I guess we're not connected. Yeah, we're not connected. So we're going to connect that, go back in. And now we have our, in here, we have our nodes, variables, we've got our output data. And so we can drop our base domain, and then we can paste our final domain, which we're going to be doing. We're going to do a no authentication again. It is a post. We're going to send a header. So this will be authorization header, and it'll be an expression of our token. So we're going to come back here, do our nodes, get our EasyPanel login, output data, result data, and JSON and token, right? Close that. And we're going to keep moving forward. We're going to send a body at this point. And the bodies, again, we're going to do JSON, and I'm going to do using JSON thing, and we're going to build out an expression. We're going to paste this in here, and let's go from there. So in order to do this, we're going to say, grab our payload here. We're going to cut that out, and we're going to paste it in here. And then finally, we're going to take our new domains, and we're going to replace it with, sure enough, our domains that we have here. Which I think we can reference. Let's see if I can do it. We may have to go back to our documentation to figure out how we can grab it. New domains, output data, JSON domains. It's probably not going to work, right? No. Oh, look at that. Okay, cool. That was actually not that bad. It needs to be an array, so we do have to wrap it around an array like this. So we got our domains, we got our host 1, HTTPS true, port 5678 path. We've got our host 2, HTTPS true, port 80 path. We've got our host 3, and then we end our array at that point, and we can save this, and we can execute this node and see if we come back with a response. JSON parameters to be valid JSON. So something that we did is not valid JSON. Let's go back and take a look at our expression. What did we do? Our project name, service name, domains, and then we have an array. And then we close our first object and we close our second object at that point. Looking at this, it looks like our JSON is valid. Well, thankfully, we've got a JSON lint editor. So let's just replace all this and validate the JSON. Yeah, it is valid. So what's their complaint about? Well, if you remember that our request actually comes back with no response, let's go refresh our page here and see if this made any difference. I'm just going to reload this whole page, and we're going to go back into our domains tab. Nope, it did not actually work. Okay, so what is going on? We have a valid JSON object that we're sending. We've got our app name, our service name. We've got our domains included. Item index 0. So let's look at our, no, that's our token. We're good there. Here, URL is that. Let's look at our body. Our body is JSON, using JSON, send body. We're gonna come out here and we're gonna send JSON, which we know is a valid JSON parameter. So why did that not work? Execute again. Okay, I think we're running into the particulars of N8N again and exactly how and something like that. I'm not sure exactly why it's causing it to fail. If we come in here and execute node, it's going to execute all previous nodes. It'll come back with a new list. And then we should be able to take that list That's the wrong one again. Go down here. And we should be able to state what that list is. Although I wonder if it's the array that's messing it up. If we pull it out at that point. But I can't imagine that's what's going on. Yeah, because if we look at this and take this, it's going to be an invalid JSON at this point. Invalid JSON, right? Expecting string got that. And so we need to wrap it into an array in order for that to work. So that's definitely not it. Let's open and close that. What else did we have here? What does the values do? So we come here, we do raw value is that. We do values. Ooh. Let's pull you out. Let's see what that looks like actually. No, that doesn't help. That's just the 3 objects versus the raw value. And we can't iterate them because we need them to make sure that it's actually object host. Ooh, okay. And if we just pull you out, it's probably going to be the same thing, right? Exit, execute node. Okay. Well, I'm not sure why this is complaining. It should work. The only thing it's using JSON set here. Yeah, this should be working. I'm going to chalk it up to N8N, not I don't know, being particular, and I'm still not familiar with it. If I take this, for example, and I make this request online in, I mean, honestly, so we can grab here. One of the things about DevTools, I'm going to show you something actually. It's kind of cool. Development Tools and Networking tab, you can actually right click and edit and resend. And then I'll open up a something like Insomnia or you know, what's that other tool that you can use to Postman, you know, to basically test API calls. So you can basically modify the API call to do what you want, and you can send that request. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna make sure that we're not crazy. I'm gonna copy this. This will be the body payload that we're gonna send. So we're gonna come here. We're gonna go to the body, and we're gonna say it's a raw text, and we're just gonna paste that in, and then we're gonna go to our headers, and our header. We probably have an authorization token already. Yeah, so we don't need to worry about the authorization token. We're going to go to our URL, and we're going to grab that URL from here, which we're basically going to use like that. And we're going to go ahead and send that request. And notice that it came back successfully. Right, and so if I go back here and then go back here, I now have my 3rd domain name. So I wasn't able to show you all of it in N8N, but I was able to show you how to build some of it out. If you're more familiar in JavaScript than me, I am not a JavaScript expert by far. I'm not an N8N expert. My strengths are in PowerShell, Roost, general IT, and learning how to figure things out. So as you saw just now, you can use the API to push custom domains. You can use development tools to break the API out, do some tests, see how it works. And then another thing I'll show you is that if you want to, you can right click on any of these calls, go to copy, and then you can choose copy as curl, copy as Node.js, copy as PowerShell. And so that way you can actually use development tools to start building a lot of your base code, figuring out how it works, and then building your stuff. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope this was useful. Let me know in the comments below. Again, huge shout out to EasyPanel. They've got some rough things regarding their marketing and regarding their price changes that are happening. But other than that, it's a great platform, and the cost is well worth it in my mind. So again, thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your night.